It's risky. Hey there guys, Gamer Rail Fan Productions here. Welcome back to yet another video here of Train Talk Show, as I now present to you episode 14 of the EMD SD40 and SD50 series. Coming up next, after that, the EMD SD60 series. Hope you all enjoy, and let's get this started. SD40-2 series. This is our first locomotive that we are going to start with. As you can see here, this is a BNSF unit, former BN. And for our first locomotive of the day, this locomotive here is called the SD40-2, and I'll show you what it means. The SD indicates the locomotive is a special duty unit. The 40 is actually the model number, and the -2 is the dash number, and that's about it for this one here. In the same year of 1972, another SD40-2 locomotive type was built. This is only used on the Canadian Pacific. This locomotive is equipped with a full-width cowl body, and this locomotive is called the EMD SD40-2F. And the F stands for full-width cowl body. 2 years later, in 1974, another variant of the EMD SD40-2 unit had came out. Looks a little bit different here, and I'll tell you what it is in a second. This locomotive right here is called the EMD SD40T-2. It is equipped with a tunnel motor, hence what the T stands for in SD40-2, a tunnel motor. Released in 1975, another variant of the SD40-2, and this locomotive right here was made for Canadian National only, I believe. There could be other railroads that have it, but I think Canadian National is the only one with it. But anyway, this locomotive is called the EMD SD40-2W, equipped with a wide cab, hence what the W stands for in SD40-2W. Now probably one of the weirdest looking SD40-2 units. And not to be confused with high hoods, this is not a high hood locomotive. There is such thing as an SD40-2 high hood, but this thing is different. This locomotive is called an SD40B. This is actually part of the B unit series, which hence what the B stands for in SD40B, that it is a B unit. B, not the kind of B that shows that the locomotive has 4 axles, because an SD40B has 6 axles, as you can tell. Right, now, let's take a look at some rebuilt locomotives of the SD40-2 series. Starting here, here's one of the first ones right here. This is a Southern Pacific unit that got rebuilt. Now there is no physical difference, I don't think so, and if there is, it's very hard to spot. But anyway, this locomotive is called the EMD SD40M-2. Now, this is a rebuilt locomotive, but they say that it is modernized, hence what the M means in SD40M-2. Another locomotive that is very, very similar to the SD40M-2. There's hardly any difference in it, but I figured I'd point it out. It's called the EMD SD40-2R, and the R stands for rebuilt, and pretty much means the same thing as modernized. There is a difference between these two locomotives, but it's not on the outside, I believe. There's hardly any difference of it, and And hopefully you do not get confused with SD40M-2 and SD40-2R, but there is a difference. Our next rebuild that came out, CSX has these. I believe CSX has these, Canadian National has these as well, I know that for sure. But anyway here, this is very similar to the SD40-2, however though it is a rebuild. As you can see, the cab on this CSX unit looks different. They pretty much redid the cab, so that's pretty much the only physical difference in it, but this locomotive is called the EMD SD40-3. The only difference of the designation is the dash number, and that's really about it for this unit. Oh yeah, here's a fun fact here. These CSX SD40-3 units are actually called SpongeBob Square Cabs. This rebuild locomotive right here looks exactly like an SD50. And this is one that Norfolk Southern has only. Norfolk Southern specifically has this locomotive only, and it is another rebuild of an SD40-2 locomotive. And this locomotive here is called the SD40E. The locomotive is enhanced, so it's pretty much an upgraded SD40-2. Enhanced and upgraded are pretty much the same thing, so, and the enhanced, hence is what the E stands for in SD40E. Now here's one that only UP has. This locomotive here is equipped with the NEX SYS system here, which is where the N designation comes from on this locomotive called the EMD SD40N. It's not a remote control unit or anything, it's just equipped with the NEX SYS system. And that is about it for this locomotive. Another rebuild of the EMD SD40-2 that only Norfolk Southern has. This locomotive right here is called the EMD SD22 ECO. This locomotive has 2,200 HP, and this locomotive is economy friendly, hence is what the ECO stands for in SD22 ECO. Another locomotive very similar to it is the SD33 ECO, which is a locomotive with 3,300 HP. And I believe that is all of the rebuild. I believe that is all of the rebuilt units in the SD40-2 series. Alright, so we are now moving on to the EMD SD50 locomotive class. This right here is what an SD50 looks like. The SD indicating special duty, and the 50 is the model number. And this locomotive was built in 1984. And then in 1985, another locomotive was made. This right here is the EMD SD50F, not to be confused with the SD60F, but the EMD SD50F has a full width cowl body, just like when we talked about the EMD SD40-2F earlier. The SD50F was specifically made for Canadian National only. All SD50F locomotives have been retired, and they were all scrapped. I don't think there's any SD50F locomotive left to this very day. Now this locomotive has got to be probably the rarest out of all of them. This is a prototype unit of the EMD SD50 called the EMD SD50S. The frame on this locomotive is shorter than the EMD SD50. It is very hard to distinct it, but it is. And it has a short frame, hence is what the S stands for in SD50S. Only 6 of these were made, and the 6 of them are now sold to Utah Railway. The locomotive that is very similar to the SD50. CSX only has this one. This locomotive right here is called the EMD SD50-2. And there's pretty much hardly any difference between it. It's just that it's pretty much kind of like a newer SD50 unit, an SD50-2, and now some of these are being retired. In fact, and the others have been rebuilt into a similar locomotive called the EMD SD50-3. And I believe that is it for today, so I just want to say to you all, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Train Service Talk Show. And now coming up next, the EMD SD60 series.